Hello again, and welcome to part 2 of my tour of Bolivia. This video starts with day 3, which was from the silver city of Potosi, heading south on well-surfaced, fast roads with sweeping bends, followed by a few off-road sections, before finally climbing over a mountain pass and down to the town of Uyuni, beside the salt flats of the same name. We rode out of our overnight parking spot at the hotel and out into the morning rush hour in Potosi, past packed pavements of people walking to work, and on reaching the main square we caught a glimpse of our first Bolivian traffic zebra. It was a beautiful sunny day with a deep blue sky, but we found the main road out of the city was closed due to a cycle race. We tried a few interesting back roads to get around it, but ultimately had to stop. After giving them a head start, we were allowed to set off, though quickly caught and passed the back markers and their support vehicles. We were even waved through the wrong side of a police checkpoint before finding the lead group of cyclists, and we had to stop again. In the same lay-by, we met some Argentinian riders on comfy-looking BMWs who had also stopped for the cyclists. Eventually we could get going again and had a great time climbing some fast, twisty paved roads up a hillside and onto a plateau. Finally being diverted off the main road by the police. We then had some fast, wide dirt roads where I could try and build my novice skills back up again, and I was able to get progressively faster. We saw almost no one, though we were greeted by some dogs and llamas. Just as I thought I was getting the hang of it, we paused in a small village. We turned off the main track onto a narrow dirt trail, with tighter bends as it wound up a hillside, and once again I was way out of my depth. My lack of skills slowed me down quite a lot, but after some practice, missed gears, avoiding other vehicles and a lot of adrenaline, I was finally able to relax and join the guys at a dried up riverbed. It was then more spectacular scenery and dirt roads, with the sand and gravel changing colour dependent upon the minerals in the ground. We eventually rejoined the tarmac and had a smooth run up and over a mountain pass, visiting the mine where allegedly Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid attempted their final heist. descending onto the wide open plain and into the town and dirt roads of Uyuni for our overnight stop. Waking up in Uyuni left me slightly lightheaded, perhaps due to the altitude coupled with dehydration and the amount of concentration from the previous day. Day 4 was our first proper day out on the Altiplano, with no towns other than our starting point in Uyuni, and all riding off-road. 209 kilometres doesn't sound like much, but again the learning curve got steeper as we headed south to Villamar. The day started with a ride around the train graveyard on the outskirts of the town, where rusting skeletons of locomotives and rolling stock make the most of the dry conditions. We then filled up at a petrol station with a big Dakar mural on the wall before heading out of town. Though the roads were dirt roads, they were straight, mostly flat, and other than the occasional clench going through soft sand or gravel, we made good progress at relatively high speeds out and across the plain. We visited some rock formations, and then the going got harder, with softer sand, large rocks strewn across the road, and approaching vehicles at speed, throwing up clouds of dust and rock. Just when I thought I was getting the hang of it, again, we took a slight diversion to ride through a stream and then to follow a rocky trail down into a canyon. That once again tested my limited off-road skills, almost to breaking point, as I tried to stay upright and keeping my levers and pedals off the rocks. Eventually, it opened out into a green oasis, where we had a peaceful break for a few minutes, before turning around and heading back up the same rocky trail, back up the canyon and back across the river to the main road. On joining the main road once again, it got bumpy, and out of nowhere I lost compression and my bike stopped. Luckily, the mechanic wasn't too far behind, and after a few minutes he joined me. I was able to quickly remove the seat and fuel tank from my bike, and found that the bumpy road had unseated the spark plug. A few minutes later I was going again, and after transferring some fuel out of my tank to get the centre of gravity down, I was able to catch up, and we headed for our overnight stay. The road seemed to go on forever, and it was the most welcome of sights when we finally arrived in the town, and the trail crossed the football pitch, past some rock formations, and up to our farm stay for our night in Villamar. Day 5 had some of the most amazing views of the trip. We headed south from Villamar, passing close to the border with Chile, at Laguna Colorada, and then on to the Dali Desert, and later on close to the border with Argentina when we turned north to our overnight stop in Quetena Chico. The day started very cold and clear, and it took a few attempts to get the bike started as overnight temperatures had been below zero, and we had icy puddles and frozen streams to contend with on the road. The roads were rough gravel and soft sand over hills and wide open plains, and picking a line helped a little, but I was still struggling. To stop at the entrance to the Reserva Nacional de Fauna Andina Eduardo Avaroa to pick up permits before we could enter. It was then more dirt roads and the occasional oasis surrounded by greenery before we stopped at the amazing Laguna Colorada. And though we couldn't see much from the road beside the lake, I took the opportunity to put the drone up to see the flamingos way out in the middle of the lake. Thankfully it came back. Then back on the road, and we set off south out of the bowl of the lake across open rocky desert. To a geothermal area with steam pouring from vents in the ground and the smell of sulphur in the air. And then on to the southerlymost point of our trip, the Polques Hot Springs and the Dali Desert. This was a smooth, sandy incline with the occasional prominent rock formation, much like a Salvador Dali painting, apparently. We then turned north, back past the hot springs, and through the winding trails of the National Reserve, along what seemed to be a never-ending road. Arriving at the overnight stop in the small village of Quetena Chico, where we had warm showers, cold beer, and a few hours of generator electricity before bed. In part 3, I travel from Quetena Chico to an amazing stop in San Juan, then across the Uyuni Salt Flats to Cactus Island and the Salt Hotel in Colchani, and then down from the high desert to the upper rainforest environment of Quimay. Hope to see you then. Thanks a lot.